Did you know that one of Hollywood's greatest love stories was almost impossible to film? The African Queen came out in 1951, and it's a movie that changed cinema forever. But here's the thing. Making this movie was harder than anything the actors actually did on screen. The cast and crew faced real dangers, real diseases, and real moments where they wondered if they'd make it home alive. This wasn't a movie filmed on a safe studio lot. This was adventure that felt dangerously real because it actually was real. Let's dive in and discover 20 weird and amazing facts about the African Queen. Fact number 20. The director chose an impossible location on purpose. Director John Huston was a man who loved challenges. When he decided to make the African Queen, he didn't want to film it in a studio. He didn't want to use fake rivers and painted backdrops. Instead, he chose to film in the deepest, darkest parts of Africa. He picked the Congo and Uganda, places where most filmmakers wouldn't even dare to visit. Huston wanted his actors to experience real fear, real heat, and real adventure. He believed that if the actors felt genuine danger, their performances would shine with authentic emotion. He was right about that, but nobody expected just how dangerous this choice would become. The crew had to travel by boat through actual African rivers. They had to sleep in tents surrounded by wild animals. This wasn't method acting. This was pure survival. Huston's decision to film in Africa instead of California made the movie unforgettable, but it also made everything incredibly hard. Got it? Fact number 19. Humphrey Bogart got malaria. During filming, Humphrey Bogart was one of the toughest actors in Hollywood. He played rough characters and had a reputation for not complaining. But when he arrived in Africa to film The African Queen, even his strength couldn't protect him from the jungle's invisible enemies. About halfway through filming, Bogart got malaria. This is a serious disease spread by mosquitoes. He developed a high fever, terrible body aches, and felt weak for days. Most actors would have stopped filming immediately and flown back to safety. Bogart kept working. He showed up to set with a fever, performed his scenes, and only rested when the cameras stopped rolling. His dedication was incredible, but it was also dangerous. Malaria could have killed him if it had gotten worse. What made this worse was that Katharine Hepburn, his co-star, also got dysentery, a serious stomach illness. The jungle was attacking them from all sides, but they refused to quit. Fact number 18. Katharine Hepburn's extreme preparation shocked the crew. Katharine Hepburn arrived in Africa completely prepared for the worst. She brought medical supplies, special water purification tablets, and food from America. She wore protective clothing even when it was boiling hot. She treated the jungle like it was an enemy trying to defeat her, because honestly, it was. Hepburn also studied the character Rose Sayer so carefully that she knew every detail of Rose's life. She understood Rose's faith, her courage, and her transformation. This preparation paid off in every scene. Her performance was so genuine that you could feel the character's real growth. What shocked the crew was her attitude. She never complained. She never demanded comfort. She simply adapted to everything and kept moving forward. The local crew members watched her and thought she was superhuman. She was just disciplined, smart, and deeply committed to her craft. Her preparation turned a dangerous situation into an opportunity for great acting. Fact number 17. The studio thought the film would never be completed. Warner Brothers Studio was nervous about this project from the beginning. They had already invested millions of dollars. They heard reports about malaria, dysentery, damaged equipment, and weather delays. The studio executives back in Hollywood started to panic. They sent messages asking if they should shut down production and write off the loss. Director John Huston responded with confidence. He told them to trust him and keep the money flowing. If the studio had pulled the plug, The African Queen would never have been made. One of the greatest films in cinema history would have disappeared before it was even finished. The studio decided to believe in Huston's vision. They kept supporting the production even though everything seemed to be falling apart. This decision changed movie history. It showed that sometimes you have to trust an artist's vision even when everything looks impossible. The studio's courage, combined with Huston's determination, created something timeless. Fact number 16. The boat was real, but getting it, there was a nightmare. The African Queen itself, the boat that gives the movie its name, was a real steam-powered vessel. John Huston insisted on using an actual working boat instead of a fake one. The problem was getting that boat to the middle of Africa. The boat had to be transported in pieces. Teams of workers carried it through jungle paths. They had to cross rivers and mountains. Some pieces were so heavy that it took dozens of men just to move one section a few feet. When they finally reassembled the boat on location, it didn't work properly. The engine sputtered. The steam pressure was unreliable. The crew had to completely rebuild parts of it using tools and materials they could find in the remote jungle. The boat became a metaphor for the whole production, something real and functional, but requiring constant repair and problem-solving. When Bogart and Hepburn actually sailed that boat on screen, they were in real danger. The boat could have broken down miles from safety. Every moment of the boat scenes was genuinely uncertain, and that uncertainty shows in their faces. Fact number 15. Filming the famous kiss required multiple attempts. Because of the heat. The romantic kiss between Charlie Allnut and Rose Sayer is one of cinema's most famous moments. It's tender, surprising, and perfectly acted. What audiences don't know is that filming this scene was uncomfortable and difficult. The African heat was so intense that both actors were sweating heavily. Humphrey Bogart's face was dripping with perspiration. Katharine Hepburn's makeup kept running. The director wanted the kiss to look natural and beautiful, not sweaty and messy. They had to film it again and again, taking breaks between takes so the actors could cool down and fix their makeup. Each time they kissed, the heat immediately made them sweat again. The mosquitoes were also attacking them during filming. You can actually see Bogart trying not to swat at bugs during some of the takes. Despite all these obstacles, the kiss works perfectly on screen. It looks romantic and perfect, but behind the camera, it was a battle against nature. The final version they used shows two actors who managed to create magic even while sitting in an oven. Chaton. Fact number 14. The studio changed the ending. Because they worried the original was too dark, director John Huston had originally planned a different ending for The African Queen. In his version, the boat gets destroyed by the German ship. Charlie and Rose would have died in the explosion. It would have been a tragic, powerful ending. The studio thought this was too sad. They worried audiences wouldn't like a tragic ending. They asked Huston to film a different, happier conclusion. Huston agreed, even though his original ending was more powerful. The final ending we see is less dark, but still bittersweet. It shows that the couple survives, but their victory comes at a cost. Some film critics argue that Huston's darker ending would have made the film even more powerful. Others say the ending we got is perfect as it is. This shows the constant tension between artists and studios, between creative vision and commercial safety. Huston made a choice to compromise, which was probably the right decision for the time, but it reminds us that great films often result from difficult conversations between filmmakers and the business people behind them. Fact number 13. Real leeches attacked the actors during water scenes. The scenes where Charlie and Rose swim through the water were filmed using real actors in real African rivers. This sounds romantic until you learn what actually lived in those rivers. Leeches. Leeches are small, blood-sucking creatures that attach to your skin. They're nearly invisible in murky water. After filming in the river, the crew would find leeches attached to their bodies. The actors would discover them only after coming out of the water. Humphrey Bogart had to remove leeches from his legs after several scenes. Katharine Hepburn showed incredible courage by returning to those waters even after learning what was in them. The fear you see in their faces during the water scenes might have been partially real fear of leeches, not just fear of their character's situation. What made this worse was that removing leeches is painful. They don't let go easily. You have to carefully peel them off or use salt to make them release. Nobody on set was equipped with proper leech removal techniques. They were learning as they went, dealing with wildlife that nobody expected. The physical suffering the actors endured during filming somehow translated into genuine emotion on screen. Fact number 12. The entire crew got sick, but only 2 actors became famous for it. While Bogart and Hepburn's illnesses are well documented, almost everyone on the production got sick. Cameramen, sound technicians, costume designers, makeup artists. Nearly every single person caught some kind of disease or infection from the African environment. The difference was that Bogart and Hepburn were stars, so their illnesses became part of Hollywood legend. The crew members suffered just as much, but nobody told their stories. A cameraman developed a severe skin infection. A sound technician caught typhoid fever. A makeup artist got a fungal infection that took months to heal after returning to America. These people never complained publicly. They just kept working. They accepted sickness as part of the job. John Huston acknowledged their sacrifice by keeping the entire original crew intact throughout filming. He didn't replace anyone, even when they were desperately ill. This loyalty created a bond between everyone involved. They became soldiers fighting against nature itself. The movie succeeded because everyone, from the stars to the people behind the cameras, refused to give up. That collective determination became the soul of the film. Cha-chi. Fact number 11. John Huston filmed real explosions for the war scenes. During the filming of The African Queen, there are battle scenes involving explosions and gunfire. John Huston wanted these to look real because, in his mind, they had to be real. He arranged for actual explosives to be detonated on camera. Real cannons fired real projectiles. Real gunpowder created real explosions. This was 1951, long before computer graphics or safe special effects techniques. If something went wrong, people could actually be hurt. The cast and crew stood relatively close to these explosions. They could feel the heat and the shock waves. Safety procedures were minimal by modern standards. Everyone involved understood they were taking real risks. Nobody wore protective gear. There was no backup plan if something misfired. What we see on screen is authentic danger transformed into art. The fear in the actors' eyes during the explosion scenes isn't pretended. It's real. Huston believed that audiences could sense the difference between fake explosions and real ones. He was right. The battle scenes feel urgent and dangerous because the danger was genuinely present. This approach would never be allowed in modern filmmaking, but it created something powerful that no amount of digital effects could replicate. Fact number 10. Katharine Hepburn organized the crew like a military commander. Katharine Hepburn wasn't just an actress. She became an unofficial leader during production. She noticed that people were getting discouraged. The sickness, the heat, the bugs, the difficult conditions, it was all wearing everyone down. She started organizing activities to keep morale high. She led morning exercises to keep people physically strong. She organized evening gatherings where people could share stories and laugh together. She made sure that injured or sick crew members had support. She checked on people and asked how they were feeling. The cast and crew started calling her the General because she ran things with such organization and purpose. She wasn't mean about it. She was genuinely caring. She just believed that a happy, healthy crew would make better movies. Her leadership probably saved the production from falling apart. Directors and producers are supposed to handle this, but Hepburn took on this responsibility naturally. She understood that people needed hope and community, not just salary checks. What started as a love story between her character and Bogart's character became a real story about human connection and mutual support off-screen. Hepburn's unofficial role as crew leader was never officially mentioned in credits, but everyone knew she held the team together. Fact number 9. The script was constantly rewritten. Because reality kept interfering. John Huston didn't work with a finished script during production. He kept rewriting scenes based on what was actually happening around him. If the river was too rough, he changed the scene to work with rough water. If an actor got sick, he adjusted that character's scenes to require less physical activity. If the equipment failed, he rewrote around what equipment was actually working. This sounds chaotic, but it created incredible authenticity. The scenes that look the most natural are often the ones that were rewritten on the spot because reality demanded it. Huston was flexible enough to see problems as creative opportunities, not as obstacles. This approach was unusual for major Hollywood productions. Studios normally want finished scripts before filming begins. They want to know exactly what they're paying for. But Huston convinced them that this situation required flexibility. The script became a living document that grew and changed as the production evolved. When you watch The African Queen, you're watching a film that was constantly adapting to reality. The characters seem real because the actors were responding to real situations, not just following predetermined dialogue. The script's flexibility made the film stronger, not weaker. Fact number 8. Bogart won an Academy Award, but he almost didn't finish the film. Humphrey Bogart's performance in The African Queen earned him an Academy Award for Best Actor. This was a huge achievement. It was recognition of his talent and his dedication. What many people don't know is that at one point during filming, Bogart seriously considered walking away from the project. He was sick, he was exhausted, he was scared. He called his wife, Lauren Bacall, and told her he wasn't sure he could continue. She told him something that changed everything. She reminded him that he was Humphrey Bogart, the toughest actor in Hollywood. She said that quitting would be worse than any disease or any difficulty. She told him to push through and come home to her as a winner. Bogart took her words to heart. He found new strength and returned to set with renewed determination. His wife's encouragement became the turning point in his battle against malaria and exhaustion. If Bacall hadn't believed in him that day, Bogart might have quit. The film would have collapsed. That Academy Award he eventually won was partly his achievement and partly his wife's belief in him. Sometimes the greatest achievements require someone else to believe in us when we stop believing in ourselves. Fact number 7. The witch doctor scene wasn't originally in the script. There's a strange moment in The African Queen where the characters encounter a witch doctor and experience some kind of spiritual moment. This scene wasn't written into the original script. John Huston added it during filming because he encountered an actual witch doctor in the village where they were shooting. The witch doctor became interested in the film production. He spent time on set watching the actors work. Huston recognized that this encounter was a gift, a chance to capture something authentic about Africa that no writer could have invented from Hollywood. He created a scene that incorporated the witch doctor and the genuine spiritual atmosphere that surrounded him. The result feels mystical and real in a way that scripted scenes can't achieve. Huston believed that the best filmmaking happened when you stayed open to unexpected gifts from reality. You couldn't plan something like this. You could only notice it when it appeared and have the creative courage to use it. This scene has confused some viewers over the years, but it exists because a director believed that real moments were better than invented ones. The witch doctor scene reminds us that the greatest art often comes from saying yes to accident and surprise. Chandorudapi, fact number 6, the German ship in the film, was actually a prop, but it looked devastatingly real. The German warship that serves as the villain in the film had to be created specially. The production couldn't use a real military vessel. Instead, the crew built an enormous prop ship using wood and paint and careful construction. This prop ship was so detailed and so convincing that most people assumed it was real. The ship had to withstand being on water. It had to look good from every camera angle. It had to be dangerous enough to seem like a real threat. The construction crew built it in pieces on location. They assembled it using traditional shipbuilding techniques. The result was a fake ship that looked more real than many genuine ships. This required incredible craftsmanship. Every detail mattered. The paint had to look weathered. The metal, which was actually painted wood, had to look functional. The details of military equipment had to be accurate enough to fool everyone watching. The prop ship became an example of how much effort goes into creating convincing fake reality. Modern filmmakers use computers to create such things. These craftsmen used hands, tools, paint, and skill. Their fake ship is arguably more convincing than any digital ship could be. Tenons. Fact number 5. Katharine Hepburn insisted on doing her own stunts, terrifying the insurance company. Insurance companies exist to protect film productions from financial loss if actors get injured. The African Queen's insurance company was already nervous because of the dangerous location and difficult conditions. Then Katharine Hepburn told them she wanted to perform her own stunts. No stunt double, no safety tricks, just her doing the dangerous scenes herself. The insurance company nearly had a heart attack. The costs would be astronomical if she got injured. But Hepburn refused to use a double. She said that if the scene was important enough to film, it was important enough to do it herself. She believed audiences could tell the difference between an actor and a stunt person. They could sense authenticity, even if they couldn't explain why. Hepburn performed water scenes, difficult climbs, and physically demanding action sequences herself. She was in her 40s during filming, which made her decision even more remarkable. Her commitment to authenticity inspired everyone around her. If she was willing to take physical risks, then others felt they should do the same. Her refusal to hide behind a double set, the standard for the entire production. Everyone tried harder. Everyone committed more fully. Hepburn's insistence on doing her own stunts transformed the film from a job into a mission. Fact number 4. The local crew members became the film's unsung heroes. The production hired local workers from Uganda and the Congo to help with various jobs. They carried equipment. They built sets. They provided local knowledge about the landscape and the river. They handled tasks that required understanding the environment. These workers faced the same dangers as the Hollywood crew, but without the fame or the recognition. Their names weren't in the credits. Nobody told their stories afterward. But the film literally couldn't have been made without them. The local workers showed remarkable skills and dedication. They adapted quickly to the needs of the production. They worked in conditions that would have defeated many people. They risked their health and safety to make this film happen. Some of them were injured during production. Some developed illnesses that lasted years after filming ended. They received payment, which was significant for them, but they didn't receive the fame or the legacy that the American actors received. The African Queen is partly a story about respect and connection between people from different backgrounds. That theme extended to the production itself. The local crew members proved that respect and great work can come from anyone, regardless of where they're from or whether anyone ever learns their names. Their contribution was essential and should be celebrated. Fact number 3. The boat journey in the film mirrored the crew's real journey toward exhaustion and understanding. As filming continued, something strange happened. The fictional journey of the characters, traveling upriver, facing obstacles, growing closer, understanding each other, started to mirror the real journey of the cast and crew. They too were traveling upriver. They too were facing obstacles that tested them. They too were learning to trust each other and work together. The line between the movie and reality started to blur. When Bogart and Hepburn's characters grew stronger through adversity, the actors themselves were growing stronger through their own adversity. When the characters learned to respect and depend on each other, the cast and crew were learning the same lessons. The film became autobiographical without anyone planning it that way. The actors weren't just pretending to transform, they were actually transforming. John Huston recognized this magical alignment between story and reality. He didn't try to separate them. He let them feed each other. The emotions you see on screen are genuine emotions of people who lived through a similar journey. This created a depth of authenticity that no amount of acting technique could achieve. The African Queen doesn't just tell a story about transformation, it was born from transformation. Chopped. Fact number 2. Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn clashed at first but discovered deep mutual respect. Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn came from very different backgrounds. Bogart was rough around the edges, tough, cynical. Hepburn was refined, disciplined, idealistic. When they first met in Africa, they didn't immediately like each other. Bogart thought Hepburn was too perfect, too proper. Hepburn thought Bogart was too crude, too casual about things. They clashed during early scenes. Their disagreements felt real and uncomfortable. But as filming continued and hardships accumulated, something shifted. They started to understand each other. They recognized the dedication underneath their different personalities. Bogart respected Hepburn's discipline and her unwillingness to complain. Hepburn respected Bogart's toughness and his refusal to give up. By the middle of filming, they had become genuine friends. The kiss they share in the film works so perfectly because they had discovered real affection for each other. It wasn't pretended love between characters, it was the screen expression of genuine friendship between actors who had survived something together. When Bogart won the Academy Award for this role, Hepburn was reportedly happy for him. They had been competitors in some ways, but they became allies. Their initial disagreement transformed into respect and caring. This mirrors the relationship between their characters, but it was more real than any scripted emotion. They changed each other by refusing to give up on understanding each other. Fact number 1. The African Queen changed cinema because it proved that real experience could surpass artificial safety. The African Queen stands as a monument to a different era of filmmaking. It represented a belief that real difficulty creates real art. The studio system was beginning to break down, and filmmakers like John Huston were proving that you didn't need perfect control to create perfect films. By filming in Africa instead of on a controlled soundstage, by using real boats instead of models, by accepting sickness and danger as part of the creative process, Huston showed that authenticity comes from risk. He showed that actors need to experience genuine danger to portray genuine emotion. He showed that crews grow stronger through shared hardship. Every modern safety procedure, every protocol that protects actors and crew owes something to lessons learned from films like The African Queen. We learned that real danger creates real art, but we also learned that we need to balance courage with protection. We can't ask people to risk their lives the way Bogart and Hepburn did. We have a responsibility to keep people safe. But The African Queen reminds us that the best performances come from genuine experience, not from safe pretending. The film changed cinema by proving that authenticity matters more than comfort. Audiences can feel the difference. They could feel it then, and they can feel it now, decades later. That's why The African Queen remains powerful. It was made by people who refused to choose comfort over truth. Bonus fact: the secret behind the film's immortality was John Huston's willingness to let his vision evolve. John Huston originally planned The African Queen as a straightforward adventure story, but as reality unfolded around him, his vision expanded. He started to see deeper themes. He recognized that the journey upriver was a metaphor for personal transformation. He understood that the clash between Charlie and Rose represented the clash between different philosophies, cynicism and idealism, toughness and gentleness, male and female, modern and traditional. He began to direct scenes with these deeper meanings in mind. He encouraged Bogart and Hepburn to find the emotional truth underneath the action. He stopped thinking like someone making an adventure film and started thinking like someone exploring what makes humans capable of change. The African Queen became both an adventure film and a meditation on love, faith, and redemption. It worked on both levels simultaneously. This expansion happened because Huston stayed flexible. He didn't force his original vision onto a situation that demanded something more. He listened to his actors. He paid attention to what the environment was teaching him. He allowed his understanding to grow. The film's immortality comes from this willingness to evolve. It's not just a well-made adventure. It's a deeply human story about two people who transform each other. That depth emerged from a director who was brave enough to let his vision grow beyond what he had originally planned. Old tools, new magic. A river journey became a spiritual journey. A love story became a meditation on faith. A film became art. The African Queen teaches us something important about courage and creation. It shows that the greatest art often comes from the most difficult circumstances. It proves that working together through hardship creates bonds stronger than comfortable agreement. It demonstrates that authenticity resonates across decades in ways that careful safety and perfect control never can. The film's legacy isn't just about Humphrey Bogart's performance or Katharine Hepburn's dedication. It's about what happens when filmmakers, actors, and crew members decide that the story matters more than comfort. It's about what emerges when real people face real challenges while trying to create something beautiful. The African Queen reminds us that we're capable of far more than we imagine. We can endure difficult things. We can transform through shared struggle. We can create beauty from chaos. Most importantly, we can discover that people we thought were different from us can become our greatest allies. That's the real story behind the African Queen, not just the adventure, but the human transformation that happens when we refuse to give up on each other. If you enjoyed these stories about how this classic film was made, please subscribe for more. Every movie hides a truth waiting to be discovered. Every production contains stories of people who work together to create something that lasts. We'll keep uncovering these stories, one film at a time. Thank you for spending this time with us, learning about the magic and chaos that created one of cinema's greatest achievements. Come back soon.